Baseball regional time. Lowery, who better to talk to than Ty Harrington?
Absolutely, one of the best in the business. He's transitioned from coaching into announcing into the booth, both radio and TV. So he's got a good grasp. He's seen a lot of these teams and look forward to a good show.
And he's been involved in lots and lots and lots of regionals through the years. That's what I want to talk about first. Ty, in your playing days, you were lucky enough to go through successful regional runs, and I don't think you even lost one, except for that one time in 86.
86. Yeah, we did. We lost a national champion.
That's right, to Arizona. Did you have any idea,
Chip Hale.
Did you have any idea going into that regional that things were kind of off, that it wasn't as good as it had been in past years?
I don't know. I mean, we always thought we were going to Omaha every year. We thought that was just the way of life. When David got there, it was the same thing. We all just thought that was what it was supposed to happen. And if it didn't happen, it was like, I don't know. It was like, I know we mourned for like a month. And because we were that team that didn't get to go, or, that year didn't go after we'd been, I think 82, 83, 80. I wasn't there in 82 or 83, but 84, 5, we went, played for national titles in both of those years and got beaten in a national championship game. And then 86 didn't go. And, obviously Chip Hale, the head coach at Arizona, and I think Joe McGreen might have been on that team. And they went and won a national title, came out of our regional, won the national title. And then we went back in 87, my senior year. And then, heck, for the next couple of years, I think we might have not gone in 88. I can't remember, David. You may know. And then, but
I think we missed. The only time the school missed, it was 86, 80, 88.
88.
And 80.
88 was Jeff Kent and Cal.
Right.
Yeah.
There was only 3 years in the 80s. It's the same match as the early 2000 guys, except they won one more title. We had one more runner-up or two more runner-ups than they did.
Oh, we had a bunch of runner-ups.
Yeah.
And, because 84, 85, I was all of a sudden going, man, this winning national championship thing's elusive. And then when you get into coaching, you get a better understanding and appreciation of who and what that means to be the last man standing. And I go back in 84, we get beat by Eddie Delzer and Cal State Fullerton and Augie. And then in 85, Miami beats us and just, they beat us twice.
Yeah.
And, but one of those things, man, it's hard to be the last man standing. People don't understand that. I mean, what is it, 250, 270, whatever it is, Division I baseball programs. I don't know what it is anymore now. And to be that last person standing is tough. I mean, and you go back and you think about how many things have to go right for you to have that happen. And, it's just a lot of different things.
I was just on the phone. I told both of you guys before we went on with Frank Anderson. We were talking about that. I mean, Tennessee, and we're going to get into this. They're head and shoulders everybody's pick, the no-brainer. But it's not like football. It's not like that. You know what I mean? Where you can go out there and impose your dominance. You can have a bad hop here. You can get a great outing against you here. You can have a bad outing from one of your guys or two of your guys. So like all of a sudden you're lost 2 games, you're done. And that's what makes baseball different. To Ty's point, why it's so hard to close the deal. And it kind of makes you, whatever Skip Bertman had going in that 10, 15-year window at LSU is pretty impressive, because they seem to always get it done.
Well, one of those things in those LSU teams that was always impressive is they had enough pitching. And I mean enough. And then they had good starters. They had a back end guy, or he was able to use his starters as back end guys. But what also was huge for them was, if you are offensive this time of year and you have withstood hitting the best arms in the country all year long, and you're still maintaining your offense, you've got a chance to win. Back then in Rosenblatt, you really had a chance to win because the way Rosenblatt set up win-wise.
Yeah.
And what that meant. I know people may think I'm crazy when I say that, but baseball coaches are
You're exactly right.
Outside of farmers, we're the best weathermen in the world. And we know which way the wind blows and which way the ballpark sets up. And Omaha, back in Rosenblatt, was the same way. You could go out there. I mean, hell, I hit a home run at BP one day, and I was like, oh my God, here we go. But the wind was blowing out about 30 at Rosenblatt.
And it set on top of that hill. The whole deal. It set on top of that hill.
Yeah.
And Here's a little backstory. The baseball people in Omaha, and I knew a bunch of them at that point, when they built the new stadium, they begged the city people and all that to build it and turn it to where it was the same direction as Omaha. They said, look, the home run, that's a big part of the whole pizzazz. Need to keep that. And they would not do it because they wanted the city skyline in the background.
Right.
And it jacked up with the wind and a lot of other factors. And look, it's a beautiful skyline. It's beautiful. I get their point. But from a baseball, it's equalized it. You can't just go slam your way. You're going to have to pitch and play some defense.
I think that's what Frank's alluding to. And truthfully, and that can happen even in a regional or a super regional, what you just described. And particularly when you're playing a game without a clock. And I just think that, you brought it up first. And Mike, every one of these teams moving forward have a guy on a mound. And then, and usually when you get into super regionals, you not only have a guy on a mound, you've got a guy on the back end as well. So that can be a neutralizer. If you get into a ballpark that is a smaller ballpark, like, Tennessee's isn't a huge ballpark
at all.
Then, I mean, their offense fits it just fine. But now, having said that, if you go through there and you watch them, last year in Omaha, I think everybody would have told you that, man, look out. Tennessee is going to be that team next year. And the very first time I saw them in the spring was when they played in Minute Maid. And I was like, holy cow. Even though Texas won that game, I remember looking at them and their offensive, but particularly their left-handed offensive balance and their power from the left side. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is unreal. These guys are going to, and I think they caught everybody's eye that weekend as well. And then obviously they've been able to move on. But one of the most impressive things everybody loses sight of, those guys pitch really well.
They had 10, just like you were saying, Ty, everybody has a guy. Historically, the good teams have 3 guys and 4 with a guy or 2 on the backside. And, you have really 3 to 6 really good guy pitchers. We have this debate. We're going to get into this. Most of the teams out there maybe have 2.5 type guys, and then they're hoping. Yeah. Tennessee's got 10 to 12 guys that he can run out there and get outs. And they can get outs for him in situations and other things. So it's a huge advantage. So, example, I was telling someone, can we beat them? Absolutely. We already have, but we got to run Hanson out there and they're going to run their guy that's equal, blah, blah, blah. Well, at 7 innings, most college pitchers don't go the full distance. So you got to go to the pen. Well, when they go to the pen, they're going to either stay the same or upgrade. And so when other teams go to the pen, you're going to have a downgrade. If you notice, Ty, Tennessee wins a lot of baseball games in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. Yeah. It'll be they do. It'll be 2-2, 3-3, 4-3, and they'll either pull away or overcome and separate right there because their pitching, their strength of pitching, their depth is the difference.
Well, so there's 2 things to that piece. What you just said, you're right on, number one, and not surprisingly so, regardless of what Mike says about you, you're right about this. But the idea that they pitch well enough so when your lineup gets to be that 3rd and 4th time, 5th time through a lineup is a challenge, and when you go to the pen, it's usually not as good as what you had out there. So in Tennessee's case is they've got offensive abilities that when they get to that 4th and 5th time through their lineup, it's hard to get through them. They got that kind of quality hitters. They adjust to what you're trying to do.
Side,
but that's the offensive side. The pitching side of it is they hold the lead. They hold the score. They don't surrender late in games where all of a sudden you go out to a guy, and a lot of times back end guys are, they create walks, they create free bases or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden they get a walk, and then all of a sudden they get behind. Then the white part of the plate becomes the only place they can source the baseball, and then that's when a team like Tennessee just kills them. And that's what Texas State's been so successful at this year, by the way. In the same breath, I mean,
I agree.
You try to get through that lineup, that 4th and 5th time, and they create tension because they don't chase and they don't get in bad counts. They take their walks, and then all of a sudden you got to go to the white part of the plate, and they stripe you out. And then when I mean stripe you out, you get in the white part of the plate instead of being on the edges, and then they get you. And then the other part of that is they've got Dixon and Stivers on the back end, just like Tennessee.
Yep.
And they hold them right there. Now they don't have historically as many arms as what Frank and those guys have at Tennessee, but those 2 guys they got back there, are really quality. They're SEC quality guys.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
And so they create tension with their offense because they take their walk. And what creates more tension than anything in baseball is a walk and a hit batsman when you're trying to hold a lead.
That's right.
Ty, you talk about pitching. Isn't it easier now on the coaches because you don't have those 6-team regionals where you had so many games in 4 days? And now with only 4 teams, it's not quite as tough. You get through the regional, and then you just have the super best of 3, and then it's a lot easier a lot of times in the College World Series.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if there were teams, I bet if you asked a team like Tennessee which one they prefer with that kind of pitching depth, they would probably prefer a 6-team regional.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, that would be a huge advantage in it for a Texas State or for, you know, teams like that mid-majors per se, even though I don't think the Sun Belt's a mid-major, by the way, in baseball. People will say what they want, and I'll argue till I'm blue in the face with them. But regardless, the idea that, yeah, it makes it a more accessible that you can now do it with 6 arms.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it with the 3 starters. You can do it with the 2 relievers and the 1 closer. Yeah. And you can get through there. To applaud your question and to agree with you, that's the difference in the way it's set up now. And then it's set up for a team to advance. And there's been some of them. You know, South Florida did the same thing last year. And there's been some teams that advanced to super regionals. And now there have been teams that advanced from a super regional to Omaha based on their 6 arms and their ability to be offensive. And that's what this has created, is opportunity for programs that aren't the traditional blue bloods, that have the pitching depth and have that kind of depth, you know, every year. It has allowed them to advance to Omaha, which to me has made it even that much more exciting.
I agree. I think they've got, off your question, Mike, I think they've gotten the format right now. Basically, the NCAA tournament is a 4-game tournament, a 3-game series. Then Omaha is another 4-game tournament in a 3-game series. And I think that's very fair. You can't do it with just 1 or 2 pitchers. You got to have some depth, but to Ty's point, you don't have to have the depth that the Arizona States or Miami's or Texas, you know, only about 10 schools had back in the day. Right. It's a fair test. You know what I mean? You've got to have some depth. You got to have 4 to 6 guys, but you don't have to have 8 guys or whatever, you know, or some ringer you could bring in from. Well, I mean, Dennis Cook, Steve LeBay were outfielders here. You could bring them in to pitch in a must-win game or a loser's bracket game. They could carve them up, you know. So
yeah, but I do got to interrupt you on that just a little bit. Yes, they were position players, and they did bring them from the outfield, but Dennis Cook did end up pitching 15 years in the big leagues, and Steve LeBay ended up in AAA as a pitcher.
If LeBay didn't go make a fortune in the stock market and at Bluebell, he'd have pitched in the big leagues too. He just got into the minor league thing.
That's right. No, that's exactly right.
No, folks, they weren't chopped liver. That's not my point. But the point was they were good enough to play both, and they were in the outfield, and you could bring them in. And there's a great story there, but they did have pitching backgrounds, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, they did. And
I guess my point is that Texas, a lot of criticism about the back end of Texas pitching this year. But if they can avoid the losers bracket in this regional, then things are set up, because all they really need is those 2, and they're going to be good all the way through until the championship best of 3.
Yeah, I mean, obviously staying in the winners bracket is huge for anybody, but you know, I mean, because it's a testament of, you know, if you don't, then you got to go to your 4th starter and your 5th starter. I'm sorry, your 5th starter if you get in the losers bracket too, and so that becomes a challenge for a lot of people, and it certainly becomes a challenge for people's bullpens. I think,
especially this year.
Yeah, you know, last year in comparison, you know, last year they were playing 6-inning games, but you know, by the time Witt and you know and everybody got done with, you know, by the time they got to the back end, they were. You know, it was a 3-2 game, and they were kind of like what, you know, their offense was able to push them through, and they were able to hold leads. And but it doesn't mean, to me, I mean, you know, when they moved Stevens to the back end, I thought it was a great move. They needed to try to do something. I thought Coach Pierce did a great job of engineering that idea. It also takes a very willing teammate to do that in his career. And, you know, people can, you know, evaluate Stevens all you want, but emotionally, that guy, he's been solid for this university. He has. I mean, he, you know, sometimes we don't pitch like we did or play like we did the year before. That's pretty common in college athletics.
It's common in the big leagues sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, David, that's right. I love the kid, man. I think his heart's in the right spot. I think they've engineered a way to get him and navigated a way to get him in where he can be successful. And again, and more. And so I liked the move when it happened. And, I mean, and again, if you look at Hanson and Gordon and really what Gordon's done, Dave, we had a chance to talk about that multiple times. That young man has really stepped into a huge role for them.
Big time.
Yeah, and a lot of their back end and their bullpen, it's not about stuff. It's about command. It's about, confidence and whatever it may be. Yeah, it's but by year's end, you've seen them start to trend back into throwing the ball better in relief again. And so I like that part of it.
Well, I think the Stevens, since he's moved back in the pen, Ty, we've seen the old Stevens, the one from the last year. The ball's down, the ball's movement. He's spotting it up. He'd gotten in a starter role for whatever reason, we don't know. Sometimes he'd gotten the ball up, he had straightened out, very hittable. Now he's throwing that slider right off the black. He's moving the ball and throwing the fastball and the sinker down at the knees, the shins, and he looks like himself again.
He's got angle on his fastball again. In midseason, he'd lost his angle. His angle meaning it wasn't going down in a downward trajectory. It didn't have the last two feet of it that were angled down and had a little sink and run to it. And it kind of flattened out for whatever, there's multiple reasons why those things can happen. But and that's why it's now when you get to the back end, it's not about his heart rate, right? It's not. I mean, that guy, he's got a solid heartbeat back there. So if you flip him the ball, you're getting your best emotional opportunity to lead to, a physicality out there on the mound with him.
And Mike, this is something in Ty and I, we got a little debate, a little fun argument. We'll probably get into it again. I think, number one, that the hitting's very good in college baseball, and we agree on that. I think the pitching has been subpar, to put it kindly, across the board with most teams. I just said that, in the old days, even a solid team would have 3 pretty quality guys. I'm seeing teams with 1.5, 2.5, 3 guys, something like that. Going back, just interjecting a little bit, what Texas will have to do, in my opinion, before we get into Ty and our little debate, is they're going to have – I think Steven's going to have to stay what he's thrown the last month and be that third guy, and they're going to need one more guy. They're going to need one more guy to come in and give us some kind of innings or a combo of 2 guys to give us some quality innings. Because even if you win the first 2 games, like in a 4-team tournament, you've still got to finish off a game there. So someone's got to step up, and that's where, you can make a name for yourself. And a lot of times it's momentum. If you can go out there and just give us a couple of innings, that offense a lot of times give you a 3, 4, 5-run lead. It's a lot more comfortable to throw the ball to the plate at that point. So I think the key to Texas specifically is they're going to have to find one more guy, maybe 2, that step up and really perform and maybe at a level they haven't performed so far this year. We've seen some moments from some guys, but a lot of inconsistencies. So back to
I agree with that. I agree with that. And, Luke Harrison, guys like that. Luke, he has the ability to come in and slow the game down. It's not maybe as electric a stuff as some of the other guys, Southern and some of these other guys that they run out there, but he has the ability to slow the game down. He does. And, because it's usually a little bit different than what you faced that day already, from an arm perspective. And, but, he's a troubleshooter for him, multi-purpose guy. I do like the idea that Stevens can come in the middle of the game, the end of the game, whatever. Another multi.
He's like a utility type reliever now. You can go long with him, go short with him, however you want to do it. Bro.
Yeah, I mean, most coaches love the idea of having. We just call him a multi-purpose guy, meaning he could close, meaning he could come in the middle, meaning he could come in and stop if you felt like the game was fixing to be decided. In the 5th inning, you could bring him in for an inning and then take him out. Once you got the game stopped, then you could go to somebody else and let them have maybe let your offense go to work and then or get somebody a clean inning or whichever it might be. And you could see that if that came up this weekend in these regional play moving forward, you can certainly see some of those things starting to happen.
Ty, give the viewers, give you the talk we were having. I'll let you go first. Give them what we were discussing, your opinion on the hitting versus the pitching overall, not just Texas, across college baseball this year.
Well, to me, there's two things. Well, there's multiple things. I shouldn't say two. There's multiple things. And the first one is we have, 22 to 24-year-old hitters in the lineup. And what that means is, in my opinion, is they don't get themselves into bad counts. Now, I don't have the stats with me. I did a tournament last week, and the offensive stats have moved forward like I anticipated they would, meaning your number of walks, runs scored, total bases are higher than they've been in a long time in college baseball. And so it doesn't always have to equate into batting average, but even it has as well so far. And the reason why I say that is these older guys don't chase the 0-0 breaker or the 1-0 breaker in the dirt or that's a bad pitch that all of a sudden changes the count from an 0-0 to 0-1 or 1-0 to or more importantly, they don't chase a 1-1 breaker change up out of the zone that takes them to a 1-2 count, which changes your mindset as a hitter at that point. So people can pick at me all they want. I know it from a coach's perspective. When you constantly are teaching guys or trying to get them into good hitting counts, people always think, wow, a 2-0 count is a great hitting count. It is. But how did you get there? Was it because the pitcher was really wild? Or did you get there because you didn't chase his breaker 2 inches off the edge of the plate?
It's plate discipline. Yeah, you work.
You would have. That's right. That you would have swung at your freshman year. So let's take a batting order. Let's just say on average that a batting order has 2 freshmen in it, and or not 2 freshmen, at least 1 freshman, possible 2 freshmen, but for sure 1 freshman and 1 brand new sophomore, for sure, in a college lineup. Probably 2, meaning they got some at-bats their freshman year. They got 30 at-bats, maybe, and then that's it. And now they're an everyday starter projected out as a sophomore starter. Those guys aren't in the lineup very much right now. So what does that mean? They're not having those trash at-bats where they just maturity-wise, they're not ready for those moments, meaning they get into an RBI situation in the 4th inning and, all of a sudden they get themselves out, swinging a breaker, chase a fastball above their hands, whatever it is that they do that they trash in at-bat. And all of a sudden they're 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, and then that leads to more failure because they don't have the emotional status yet from failing in college baseball. That becomes the maturity side of their growth. They haven't had that yet. Well, you start looking at these lineups right now, 1 through 9, and they got a senior at the front end and or a 4th-year junior at the front end and a 4th-year junior on the 9-hole. And all that in between are those guys that aren't throwing away at bats. Here's the other piece to me. Again, I'm open to anybody to tell me anything different. The other part is when in the 3rd and 4th innings, when you get a runner on 3rd base with less than 2 outs and the infield is still playing back with 2 strikes, these older hitters gear down and or if they see elevation, they know they can get to the bottom of the baseball to get it to the outfield, or more importantly, if they've kind of shortened up, they understand the idea of rolling the ball in the middle of the field to score the run from 3rd base. That decides games more times than you might imagine. So these older hitters have the ability to do that. And that, to me, those quality, mature at-bats is what I've seen more of this year than I've ever seen. I've also seen fewer strikeouts. And at the end of the year, when you take, to me, 2 of the stats that qualify me or qualify in my mind a guy who's really a great hitter isn't always his batting average. Batting averages can be deceiving. But the 2 of the other things along with in your total in your total bases and your slugging percentage, when you start taking your free base quality, your walks and your hit batsmen, and you verse that your strikeout and it's flat or even higher than your strikeout ratio, which is what we're seeing for the very first time in my mind, reading through stats and analytics. I'm seeing every team, not every team, the good teams, their analytics show their free base strikeout ratio is crazy. I'm talking about not only just flat, but sometimes, 3 and 4 guys in their lineups are higher. Their walk free base are even higher. And I'm sitting there looking at live tech stuff today. They got 368 free bases. They're only hitting 279, but 368 free bases? That's a ton. Those are singles, by the way, just not sexy. And so to me, those are the types of things that have changed college baseball, and why from the very beginning, and I'm not tooting my horn on this, but from the very beginning, I felt like this was going to be the most incredible and truly one of the most exciting college baseball seasons ever, because of that maturity running the bases, that maturity offensively at the plate, and being able to drive runners in, get into good counts, take walks, and to be able to get on base. To me, that was going to change this game this year, and it has. And to me, that's the difference in it. Now David is going to tell me in just a second, because he and I have already gone through this, why haven't the pitchers adjusted? Some of them have, but remember, let's date this back to 2020. 2020 COVID, we had 5 rounds in a draft. Who all gets taken in the first 5 rounds of a draft when you only play 20 games? The pitchers. So now we go through to 2021. They cut the number of jobs down in minor league baseball, right? Now, how 180, whatever it was? I don't even know the number. I'm just guessing now.
Right.
And so you cut those out. Who gets cut out? Position players. So that's why you've got 23 and 24-year-old guys in lineup. And remember, this is the hardest part for people to recognize. Remember when you were a freshman hitter. Remember when you were a senior hitter. That's the difference. That's why this game is the most mature college baseball season I've ever experienced watching, being a part of. I'm not coaching it, but yet, calling it, being around it, and actually having more time to watch other teams and how they do things. And it has been, to me, that's why it's been so much fun. And I got to be out, the quality and the value of the defense that's being played in college baseball this year is unreal. I truly is. It used to be, if you were fielding 972 or 975 on grass, you were high quality. You would take that every year as a coach. I'm watching Texas field 983, 985, and spent most of their year there. I'm watching other teams, they're coming in fielding 972, 975. That means you're not giving games away, is what that means. You get under 965, 967, you probably lost a game or two by your defense, one way or another. And so those qualities right there, to me, has made this the best viewers. If you love college baseball for all the great things that it is, to me, this has been one of those years because of those factors.
And Mike, for the record, I agree with everything. I told him this on the phone. I agree with everything he just said. However, I do think, and I think it's going across the board in baseball, I think the evaluation, development of pitchers has gotten skewed somewhere. And this is kind of tracking on the MLB line. Anybody has Facebook, you go on Facebook, there's somebody crow hopping, throwing into the net. They got a gun on him, and they jump up and down when he throws 100. Okay, great. He threw the ball 100 miles. Doesn't mean he can pitch. It doesn't mean he can pitch. And give me a pitcher over. And if he's got velo with it, wonderful. But I think they're all chasing velo. I mean, the coaches and the people recruiting, and they're not spending enough time developing. And the first thing that happens, those velos that didn't sign the draft, Ty, and you know this, they're all seeing Dr. Andrews right now. A lot of, not all of them, but about half of them, they're having surgery. So they're out. Yeah. Right. And the other ones can't throw a strike, or they can only throw one strike and it's straight as an arrow and it gets timed up and it gets hit. I think that's a big issue right now. They better start sending some guys out to recruit that can find pitchers. And then we'll go with the velo. The velo is an extra if you can do it. It's like hitting a lot of home runs in BP. That's wonderful, but you can't hit. That's a 5 o'clock hitter. But at 7 o'clock, now we're going to find out what Ty was saying about the good hitters, good at bats. And, can you do that? Anybody can just sit there and launch a ball out of the park, but can you hit come game time? Same thing with pitchers. It's great if you throw 100, but if you can't throw strikes and you don't have movement, don't have location, you don't have a second, third pitch, not going to work out too well. So it's my opinion. I don't disagree with Ty. I do think you have a lot of mature hitters, but you've got mature. Stevens is one of those mature hitters. And for whatever reason, we've seen him have a little bit of a down year that he's coming out of now. He looks like his old self going into the playoffs. But, there's older, mature pitchers out there. There's single guys that hadn't been drafted.
No, there are. I'm not, and let me say this, and Mike, it doesn't pain me to say this because I know how really involved David is in his baseball thought process. I mean, he truly is. And for somebody that never really coached a ton beyond what he did as a player coach and a youth coach early, he understands the value of the game about as good anybody you're going to have a conversation with. And he's right about everybody trains for velo. There's no question about it. You're seeing it in the big leagues. So when you train for velo, there's a handful of things that happen. You go to a higher leg kick, you go to a higher break with your arm. All those things can help you create velo. And David's also right. There is a higher risk right now, it seems like, and I think the doctors would back it up. Young guys with elbow issues, and I think there's a piece of me that wants to say, after talking to other coaches and doctors, there's a piece of me that wants to say, look, you can build up, and they do. They work so hard on building all the small muscles up. You see guys throwing balls up against the wall. You see guys doing band work 24 hours a day. There's a limit that all those muscles you can build up and make stronger around it to absorb the force. But the reality is that ligament doesn't change. You don't build it up. I mean, it is what it is. And I think that there's force that you can build up that it just can't absorb it over and over and over. And that's coming from doctors. That's not Ty Harrington, the doctor. I can promise you that I'm far from being that. But I do think there's a lot of knowledge behind what they're discussing when they start to talk about the dangers of that. David's right. If you're throwing it as hard as you want and you're ripping breakers, power overhand breakers, which is what these guys are throwing, then you're not going to throw as many strikes. And you're not going to be a Greg Maddux guy on a corner of the plate and just dissecting the plate nonstop and making the ball. Remember, you got to make the ball do two things. First of all, you got to make the ball go two different directions, and then you got to make the ball go forwards and backwards. And that is the off-speed part of it. And you have to disrupt timing on a hitter, and you got to create bad contact. That's how you do it, is from making things go two different ways and making the ball go forward and backwards, velocity-wise and change-wise. And so, when you're trying to disrupt the timing side, and so I do 100% agree in a sense that kids are training for velo now. They're also getting paid for it. Yeah. When you look in professional drafts, I mean, because that's what the big leagues.
No, I get it.
Yeah, that's what you alluded to.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of truth in that, and we're at it.
So I think it's a combo of the two. What you're saying, I think you got more mature hitters, and you got pitchers. A lot of them been sucked up by the draft, but the ones that are left that could, I just think there's a skew right now of what good pitching is, and it's not always how hard you throw. I've heard Greg say that on air. Throwers. Where's my pitchers? You've seen a lot of throwers this year. I've heard Swindell say that on air.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But you're watching. The example you're seeing is in the sixth inning in the big leagues, a pitcher goes 5, and then he's out in the 6th because they won inning it out the rest of the way at 95 to 100. 95 to 100, nonstop. I mean, when's the last time you watched a pro game you didn't see somebody throw 95?
Yep.
In all honesty, and so. I will say this to add to this, and I think David would agree with me on this, is that last year the running game came back into professional baseball. And part of that is when you start talking about velo, you start talking about leg kicks, and you start talking about longer timing to the play. There you go. And so the running part of the game had kind of changed. Well, it came back in college baseball too. You start looking around the country, you start looking at first of all, guys were getting on base more, but you start to look at the idea of these guys a little bit longer to the plate, and so they're starting to steal. And I do think it's coming back into professional baseball as well. I think it's just like anything else. We all evolve, and the game evolves. We evolve from a finesse game to a power game. So what's next for us is in baseball is somewhere in a hybrid in between power and a finesse.
A little back to the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like anything else. You have to adjust to what you're trying to compete against.
And I'll say this. I was talking another one of your former coaching fraternity brothers, let's say Mike Trahan, Louisiana Lafayette McNeese for years, Trahan. And we were talking about this. I said, hey, Ty and I just were going back and forth about, blah, 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 blah. And he said his opinion is when he got on the injury part of it specifically, so you got all these kids throwing innings in select and all this as teenagers, they get to you at college. He thinks the guys, and he says, kind of what you're saying, Ty, they've only got so many bullets in the gun right there, and that thing's going to blow. And he said managing that. Who can ever figure out that formula? There's no formula. Sometimes you're just going to blow. But who can manage and get those kids, on a schedule that works for the modern way of the velo testing might have a big advantage, at some point.
I think there's a lot of technology coming our way that's going to help us. There's a lot of smart doctors that have seen now that there's a lot of resources and a lot of emphasis put into the study of the elbow and the shoulder and pitching, getting guys back. What can they absorb? What can they do? Keeping guys healthy, because if you spend $20 million a year on your number one guy in the big league and he's hurt, what good is he? So that's a $20 million investment. So I think now you're starting to see all these doctors and rehab and facilities start to train and do different things. And I think the research will come out in the next 5 years, and we'll start trending in a way that we'll start to narrow the number of injuries down some. I do believe that. Going back to what Trahan's saying, I think as a young kid, trying to find it's doable, by the way, but trying to find a summer league coach that isn't going to take you out there and throw you nonstop.
Or a high school coach, or
a high school coach. Yeah. And abuse your arm, because it is to some degree. I do think trying to manage find those people that are willing just to say, okay, you're going to throw 40 pitches this week. That's it. And then you're going to go play outfield maybe or not, or whatever it may be, but not 120 in a week at 3 different times and not train in between, which is what happens. And so I'm trying to find those organizations that have that. And there are some who have it, by the way. They do. There are guys that are organized enough in this summer league stuff that'll put some thought into it. You got to do your homework, your diligence as a parent, trying to find that organization that can help you do that and that is willing to do that, and maybe even lose a game on a Saturday or once in a while because they're going to stick to their guns and not run you back out there for another 2 innings, on championship Saturday or whatever it is to win a pennant or whatever it is that you get. And and protect somebody's future. Those guys do exist, but trying to find those organizations, like I said, you got to do diligence on that. But let me back up a second, and I'll end it with it, not in the show, but in this. The technology is coming. The interest is already there because money starts to drive a lot of things. And when you're investing millions of dollars in players and they're on the DL and they can't play, all of a sudden professional people are going to start digging in there to try to, how do I keep my guys on the field? And the difference between winning national championships, world championships, having successful organizations is being able to keep your guys healthy. How many coaches do you hear, managers or coaches, however you want to talk about them or refer to them, how many of them ever say at the very beginning of the year, every one of them say, well, if we stay healthy, we got a chance. So now you're starting to see resources put in not only into bat technology, ball technology, resources into building facilities, but now finally people are putting in the resources to making sure prehab and rehab to make sure the health of an athlete can stay out there. When you got that and you got healthy players, you got a chance to win championships in my mind.
Yeah. Ty, there's so much money in the draft these days, and yet I know one really good pitcher for Texas took his name out of the draft last year. He was draft eligible and wanted to come back. Do you think part of that has to do with NIL money that's out there, and that changes the face of the game?
I think it can. I think it could, and quite frankly, I think it should. If we're going to have this, if I'm a young kid and if I'm a parent and my kid's a 15th round draft pick, which is good, by the way. Mm-hmm. I've been tickled to death by going in the 15th round. But if my kid is a 15th or 20th round draft pick and he's a junior and he's got a chance to get his degree from the University of Texas or Texas State or get his degree and then maybe even start a graduate degree, and he's got a chance to come back and make his scholarship value and maybe even have a chance to make some money and get my degree, knowing what I know, I think it's a great thing. Yeah. Again, I truly do. I think it's going to create options for guys to stick around to play college baseball. And remember, I don't work for professional baseball. I work for college baseball. That's my love. That's my passion. I like professional baseball. I got nothing against it. my love is college baseball. And any chance I can to promote the game of college baseball, I'm going to do it. And I think this is one of those ways to keep guys in school, let them get their degree, let them finish school, let them enjoy playing in front of 4,000 people, let them, invest their time into that and make college baseball even better than it is today, which is it's incredible right now. But to allow them to come back and give them a reason to come back, I think it's awesome. And I do, Mike, I think it's a great question. And I do think it does have an effect on college baseball.
I just
Mike,
think,
go ahead,
there's so many factors out there that I think that you're going to see more and more 22-year-old players than you are 19-year-old players, like you said before, Ty. That's just going to change the game considerably, not only just now because of post-COVID, but for years to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look at, college baseball, it used to be the sport that you kind of liked, and you liked it during Omaha. The ping of the bat, the ping of that aluminum bat in a commercial for ESPN, everybody go, whoa, it's College World Series time. Well, now with the ESPN Plus platform, you're seeing college baseball, thousands of games on. You just flip your computer on. I mean, ESPN Plus outsmarted everybody. And also not everybody, but they put out a platform that a lot of people are following now, and I probably shouldn't say that, but they put out a platform that other people are following that has promoted college baseball, because you can flip your computer on a Tuesday night and watch whoever you want to watch.
That's right.
And on a Friday you can watch whatever you want, and young kids are getting to watch it. And now the quality, and you're seeing Bally's do it as well. The quality of the baseball right now is so good and so clean and so fun to watch. And now, to your point, to have these older guys that are going to stick around, it's just going to make college baseball even more special than what it is already today.
Now, here's the downside. Are we going to see more and more and more freshmen transferring because they're not able to play because of all these old guys?
Well, I think that's a possibility as well. Trying to find that fit has always been interesting. The portal is going to be an interesting, process for a lot of people. Here's the best way for me to describe that. If you're going to coach, you got to be on the right side of the portal. I mean, that's just all there is to it. You got to figure out how to be, on the good side of it. And how do you do that? There's a lot of factors. One thing I love about it, I'll be honest with you, you got to treat your kids good. You got to do a good job with them. You got to work hard with them, and you got to live up to their expectations too, right? We always want, as coaches, them to live up to our expectations. We need to live up to their expectations as well, and coach those people emotionally and physically to be a part of our program and teach them what commitment means. Now, that's a whole nother topic that we don't have time for today. And I think there's a lot of things, good things about the portal, and there's some things that I'm like, man, just, does a kid really got to stand in there and fight for his position? He can just pick up and leave. There's a lot of different things to that. I mean, I don't have the answer to that, because I see so many sides of that, guys. I can't even begin to tell you that if I'm a coach and I take a different job, I always felt like if a coach left and he took a different job, every one of those kids ought to be able to go where they want to go. I used to think that. I'm going to be like, heck, if somebody took a different job, because you sign with that coach, you sign with that university, but you also sign with that coach as well, or at least give them the option if they wanted to. And then I see the side that if you're not playing and you want to go somewhere else, it used to be you had to go get a release. You had to go through a process. You had to go through some hoops to do it. And, that was part of it. And, now that you run that risk, that if you're at a school where you develop a shortstop, you took him when nobody else wanted him at 17 years old, a young freshman, and you develop him, which is your job. And all of a sudden he's a junior year and he's going to be the top shortstop in the country. And somebody comes in and, says, hey, come here. And he walks in your office. He goes, Coach, I love you. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I got a chance to go play at such and such. And how do you fault the? I mean, there's so many things to this that you can stand on one anchor and say it's got to be like this. It's got. I don't. Man, there's too many factors involved in this. There's too many things, and that to me, that work in everybody's benefit. Can you create some hoops through there a little bit more? Maybe, and But I think as a coach, in my opinion, as a coach, you got to really work hard. And I love that. I'm not true. You got to treat your kids. You got to work hard with your kids to make them feel connected and make them feel like this is my home. This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Mike, back to what you were saying about the draft, and you say you'll have older guys. I totally believe that. And I think what you're seeing, and I agree with this, you're seeing a little bit of a transition. In other words, in the old days, you had your high school dudes that had super tools. They got drafted high. You had your JUCO route where guys could get drafted JUCO. But man, when you got to a 4-year and you had pro aspirations, you wanted to try to sign as a junior, and it's what the money got you. It was your leverage year, blah, blah, blah. So you saw a lot of guys leave after their junior year almost all the time. You'd see a few come back for their senior, try to up their status. But for the most part, guys, they were on the radar. They left after their junior year. Yep. And then as a senior guy like me, you just signed hoping to get the right breaks and move up the ladder and all that kind of stuff. Now what you're seeing where you get some right development, we've seen it with Tulo here at Texas. There's other schools that have it. Melendez, perfect example. He was drafted in the 20th round last year. Not horrible, but he thought he's better than that. So in the old days, he probably would have went ahead and got on in the system, taken the 5, 10, 15 grand, whatever that rate was at the time, and got on in the system. He could have made it as a 20th rounder, a little bit harder, but he could have made it. But now he has the option. Shit, there's only 20 grand. He goes, I'm going to go back and work with Tulo and work on my game, which he did. And made himself not only a power guy, but a much better hitter now.
Yep.
And he's upped his stat. He's got to be a first, second round pick now, I would think. Again, who knows what pro people are going to do. But, I mean, he's considerably improved his level of how high a pick he's going to be. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see more of that. In other words, coming back from your last year is going to be – you're not going to lose as much leverage. There's fewer rounds now anyway.
Yeah, so – Here's the answer to that. Again, this is just my opinion. Here's the answer to that. Yes, you're right. I do think they're going to come back. And this is why I think college baseball is trending in such a beautiful way right now because of that. But what professional baseball inadvertently or advertently, I don't know which one. Don't live that world. What they've done now is they've said, okay, you guys go train them. You guys train them. And now, and it's smart because we're going to train them. The coaching that you get in college baseball today is so good. It's so in depth because the NCAA opened the door a little bit more about how much time we could spend with them and what we could really do with them. We can really coach them now. So now we're developing them as well. So now pro baseball said, well, before I'm going to, go into that living room and offer a kid $1 million, I'm going to see if he's really that real. And I'm going to let college baseball. And now the maturity level of college baseball is a true trajectory for them to base it on because we got so many older players in there. So you de-risk your investment as a professional baseball team because now you're seeing the value of who that kid is and he's getting matured, he's getting coached, he's all those things those tangibles that you have a chance to do as a coach and to make a guy better in so many different ways. College baseball is doing that, and I think pro baseball is looking at it going, okay, well, now I'll invest that kind of money in that kid. And so I think they're allowing us to grow these kids. I do.
Totally agree. College is taking on a bigger responsibility, and the lazy or the unqualified that can't coach them up and train them up and develop them up are going to fall behind. Kids are going to go, they're going to go, holy cow, look what he did with those hitters, or look what he did with those pitchers. If I want to play in the big leagues, I got a chance if I go play for that guy, whether it's their head coach or assistant coach or whatnot. I mean, that's going to become almost as big as the school, how much the school's winning. I mean, because it's going to become a training ground. It already kind of has. So anyway, real quick, let's go over just some of these sites. Ty's got it up there. Just real quickly, Ty, who do you like in all these? Go Tennessee first.
First of all, do you really think with my eyesight that I can read that?
You know what? I'll take care of you. Knoxville Regional, you got Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Campbell, Alabama State.
You can stop at Tennessee and just keep going. And so I do. I mean, unless I think Tennessee wins that. So now some of these some of these questions you're going to ask me, I'm going to give you emotional answers every once in a while. Okay.
No, of course. Georgia Southern, Notre Dame, Texas Tech, UNC Greensboro.
Well, I don't know who's going to win, but I'm going to tell you that they allowed a mid-major. This is my point on this regional. They allowed a mid-major, or again, I don't think the Sun Belt's a mid-major. That's what everybody refers to it as. They allowed us, a first-timer like Georgia Southern to host a regional. I think it's the greatest thing the NCAA's done in a while because it inspires other schools to build nice facilities, spend money in college baseball, and they need to do it every year. They need to do something like this more times than not. We got to have teams to give them an excuse to do it too, right?
Yeah, give them an incentive.
That's right.
Agree.
They need to do this because it's just going to continue to sharpen the edges on college baseball and make it better. But it's going to be really fun to watch. Rodney Hennon, the head coach of Georgia Southern, one of the finest guys you'll ever meet in your life. Tim Tadlock, who I've known since, he and I started out coaching together. I think Notre Dame at one point in time, was probably could have been a host. And so that regional to me is going to be the funnest one, not the funnest one. It is going to be a lot of fun to pay attention to.
Okay, we'll skip Austin. We'll go Greenville Regional, East Carolina, Virginia, Coastal Carolina, and Coppin State.
Well, let me tell you something about Coastal. They weren't good early because they had injuries. And they got Michael Knorr back the second half of the season. He's 95 to 98. It's real. It is real on the mound. Doesn't walk anybody. It's real. He's healthy. They also had the pitcher of the year, Van Scooter, who is really good. So Coastal, don't be shocked if they get to the finals of that regional. Their back end is just okay. And that is their Achilles and had been their Achilles. But now that they've got a little bit of health on the front end, I got to be honest with you, East Carolina has been trending in a way that they played well. They've got a lot going on. It's kind of hard to back away from them winning at home right now. Virginia's really good too, but it's hard for me to say that somebody's going to DC East Carolina.
Did it surprise you that Texas and East Carolina, who supposedly should match up in the Super Regional, because so many people thought it would be Texas against Texas A&M?
That's an emotional. That was an emotional thought, I think.
Yeah,
did that come out right?
We saw in so many years. We saw Texas matched up against TCU. Saw Texas matched up against Houston. The NCAA has shied away from the regional matchups as much in the supers.
This is the first time. So this is the first time they took number twos. If you look on there, to me, they took the number 2 seeds and they spread them out all over the country. There was no. I mean, they went by the numbers. They said they went by the numbers. I'm going to believe them. But if you look at it, it looks like they may have gone by the numbers, and meaning that the ranking, not emotional rankings. I'm talking about really sitting down with the RPI and sitting down strength of schedule and starting to dissect the 64 teams. I think they decided to take teams and just start putting them wherever they felt like it was the matchup.
And I saw the interview with the gentleman. I think he's from Army. I think he's from West Point.
He was. He played in the big league.
Yeah. And he said there was some eye test stuff on there too, some gut feel, and they would take, what series they had against top 20 type caliber, whether it was RPI or rankings. Yeah. And so they said there was some gut feel stuff, as well in there, which I think is part of it. I think you should add some of that. Who passes the eye test down the stretch. I like it. All right. College Station, the Aggies, TCU, Louisiana, and Oral Roberts. I think that's an interesting with the Schlossnagel ex-TCU. That could be interesting.
Somebody called it the Schloss Bowl. And, I was texting back and forth with Mike Rooney, and I didn't think that they would send TCU there. I thought that was too intense. And Matt Deggs goes back. Deggs was an assistant in the Childress as well, the head coach at the Raging Cajuns at Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was a lot.
There's some intensity with the staffs right there, especially what went on with TCU and all that kind of stuff. So that could be interesting. Yeah, I think what Jim has done with the Aggie team and program this year is pretty good. I saw him in the fall, and he's done a good job. Take your hat off to it. And he's done a good job of putting that team where it is. They lost one of their better, their Tuesday starter to an arm injury, and they were still, moving. So I think that to me is going to be one of the, my mom would turn over in the grave, one of the more funnest
I know that's
Well,
not how you say.
And
So,
Carlos has equally
intriguing,
done a good
exciting.
job with TCU. Now he's
He
known
has.
for his pitching.
Absolutely.
I think that they're very light offensively. I'm not impressed with them offensively. They can be pitched too. Any comments on thoughts on TCU's? Do they have enough offense to win that region?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that. They've been up and down to me, and been pretty inconsistent. Now, understand when I say that there's a bunch of Aggies watching this. When I say inconsistent, I'm sorry, Horned Frog watching this, is that they've been up and down for their standards. So make sure everybody hears that. So
Louisville Regional, Louisville, Oregon, Michigan, Southeast Missouri State,
Louisville,
Gainesville, Florida, Oklahoma, Liberty,
OU. That's emotional.
That's
emotional and smart. Yep.
Did it surprise you Oklahoma didn't get to host?
I think that's a rule. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, good question.
I think that's something that needs to change. They need to wait till all of the conference tournament games are over, and then make their choice. That's my opinion. How do you know if then is every game not important then? Right? And making a decision.
That's basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
And he answered that question too. He basically said that no matter the outcomes of the games that were left, they felt like that one game wasn't. I mean, I thought the guy did a stand-up interview, and there were some tough questions on DBU, and they got in, so and so didn't get in. I thought it was a really good interview. But anyway, all right, on the Black Spur, Virginia Tech, Gonzaga, Columbia, Wright State.
Virginia Tech wins, but it's going to be them and Gonzaga, and it's going to be a great game.
I'm hearing Gonzaga can pitch it a little bit. Have you seen them? Have you had them?
Yes, I have. No, I have not had them, but I've seen them.
Okay.
And they've done a good job there. One time they were a possible top 16 seed.
Right.
So, yeah, they can pitch. So that game's going to be Virginia Tech, Gonzaga on the last game.
So I guess what I'm saying is the Zags can do more than basketball now. All right. Stanford, Texas. Hey,
Texas State.
Yes.
UC Santa Barbara, Binghamton.
I just told you, Texas
State. Okay, I didn't even have to get the rest out. I think Texas State gives Stanford a run for their money. I do. Hey, back to Gonzaga. Can you guys know the famous entertainer? We were all little kids that is a famous graduate of Gonzaga.
No.
Bing Crosby.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Bing Crosby is a big Zag. There's a statue of him on campus and everything.
I didn't know.
All right, College Park.
Well, you said kids, so I was going to say something like Leaders
when
of
we
Beaver.
were kids. Bing Crosby. Look it up.
Okay.
All right, College Park. You got Maryland, Wake Forest, UConn, Long Island. Talk about an East Coast flavor. Wow.
Yeah, but I don't know about that. That's going to be a tough one. A couple things. One, UConn's pretty good. They're a good 3C. Coach Penders does a good job.
That's a Penders. That's right.
Yeah, he does a really good job. Man, I don't know. I thought, my own personal opinion, I thought the Big Ten was not as strong as they historically are. And so I don't know about that one. I'm gonna just say, I guess I'll just go along with Maryland, but Wake Forest is really good, by the way.
All right, Chapel Hill Regional. You got a hot North Carolina team, Georgia, Virginia Commonwealth, and Hofstra.
North Carolina.
Stillwater Regional, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Grand Canyon, Missouri State.
Oklahoma State.
I don't disagree with that. I think they're a pretty good ball club. Grand Canyon's not playing as well as they were earlier in the year. I didn't think.
No.
Coral Gables Regional, Miami, Arizona, Ole Miss. They're going to be mad. Canisius.
Miami.
How do you say Canisius? How do you say that, Barnesy? Canisus. Canisius.
I don't know.
Canisius?
Yeah.
It don't matter.
I don't think they're going to be watching the show. Yeah, I don't think so. Hattiesburg, Southern Miss, Louisiana State, Kennesaw State, and United States Military Academy.
Southern Miss wins. They can pitch. They're just okay offensively, but they are really deep.
Can they neutralize LSU's offense? Because LSU's bad in the field, pitching's okay, but they can really swing it if their guys are.
You got to get 3 hitters out in LSU.
Okay, good call. Auburn Regional, Auburn, UCLA, Florida State, Southeast Louisiana.
Auburn.
Corvallis What do you
Florida
think?
State could win that. Florida State could win that. But go ahead.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that'd be a big
Oregon
surprise.
State, Vandy, San Diego, New Mexico State.
Oregon State.
Okay, back to Austin. Who you got?
Texas. Do you think I'm not going to pick my horns?
No, you and I have to pick the horn.
Well,
But I tell you what,
What do you think about
they can't
BB?
stumble. They have
What do you
to
think
play
about
clean.
DBU being a 3 seed? I was surprised DBU dropped to number 3.
Man, they were kind of a
Almost a bubble
thing
team
all year. They went from the top 10 RPI to but man, they really did not pitch well the last part of the season. I mean, and then when they got into games where it looked like they were going to get beat, I know this sounds kind of goofy, but as a coach, you know this. When somebody gives up 20 every once in a while, stuff like that, against a team that's just okay offensively, you're throwing guys out there that your depth on your mound's not very good. So if you go and you look at their stats and you start reading through them, they only have one guy with over 60 innings pitched all year. I'm sorry, 2. One at 61 and one at 64. So they're having to go to the bullpen. Most guys at this point are going to have pitchers that are 75 to 90 innings pitched, your starters. So that tells me they've had to go to their pen quite often. And I started looking at the number of appearances from different guys, and there was a bunch of them. So that would probably be they've got a lot of home runs. I think they've hit 84, 89 homers, something like that, which is quite a bit, which is what Dan Hefner does really good. He's a great hitting coach, by the way.
Absolutely, he is.
And
how good is La Tech this year, Ty?
Good. They can pitch. They're good. They can pitch.
I know people don't know Air Force has got a dude throwing Friday. He's a first round caliber guy.
Oh, no, he's a dude. He's a dude. There's no doubt about that. I mean it's 92 to 97 with only 30 walks and 90 innings. So that's only 1 every 3. And so his free base, he's only hit 3. So that's only 33 free bases. That's not very much.
That's good.
So you're going to have to earn it. He's got 90 strikeouts and 80 innings. So he's got a wipeout pitch, a swing miss pitch, I should say. So they got their work cut out. Now, they are a really good offensive team, Air Force is. They are the best number 4 team and really probably are pushing a number 3 type hybrid team in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
They are by far and large the best number 4 seed in the country. Now, going back, I called those 2 games they played at Tuesday, Wednesday, and they are fastball hunting like you. It was crazy. And if you got to be able to handle it, you got to be able to throw a secondary in there, which is what Hansen can do. So I think he neutralizes their really explosive offense. And when you start looking through there at a kid hitting 414, 11 home runs, you got another kid hitting 370 with 12 home runs. I mean, it's impressive offensive numbers. Now Skeens has not beaten a regional team yet. All the teams that he won in his 10 games that he won, or they won 12 games that he started. I don't think there was a team in there that he beat that was a regional caliber team, but all of them there were a handful of traditional teams in there that were good. So they've got their hands full. They've got to hold Air Force to less than 4.
How deep is La Tech's pitching? I know Air Force, that's probably about the only guy they've got is Skeens. How deep is La Tech's pitching? It's
deep. They got, I think it's Critter is his name or something like that, who's a multi-purpose guy. He's got a 1.5 ERA. Teams are hitting like 179 off of him or 180, something like that. And hold on, actually, I looked it up earlier. Let me see. It is. And it's Krieger, and it's a 170 ERA.
Wow.
With a 213 batting average.
How many innings? How many innings?
Man, it's like 65 innings.
Wow. Solid.
No, that's no starting. 65 innings. That goes back to telling you that's what I'm telling you about DBU's pitching is Krieger out of the pen has more innings than their number 1 starter.
Wow.
And so that tells you a little bit about. And then they've got Fincher, Jennings, Gibson. All these guys are 2 ERA. They're at a 4 ERA. That's pretty good in college baseball this year.
Yeah.
Real quick, and this probably we could do a whole show and it could get long-winded like we did pitching versus hitting today. But notice how conspicuous how the how do I say it? The depletion of California, of West Coast teams, how that's gone down. You don't see it. I looked this stat up, and this is where I try not to do it on the show. It gets political, but I looked up from 47 to 2000, and West Coast teams won half. You throw in Arizona, the Arizona State, they won half of the national titles. Since 2000, there's been like 3. I mean, it's just disappeared. College, I mean, it's just basically, it's just disappeared. They used to have, I was looking at some old stuff in the 80s. They always had a West 1 and a West 2 region. They're lucky to get one token regional now, So
well, I'm gonna answer part of your I'm gonna answer part of your equation a non-political way, and that is that the teams down south started building these huge, beautiful facilities, and the Big 12 and the SEC started. Texas has 3 kids from California on the team.
Yeah.
So there you go. Everybody started taking.
The South has world class. So when you watch a West Coast Pac-12 game, it's like watching Cuba. The cars they're driving around. Okay, this is a little bit political, but it's kind of true. Their stadiums are dilapidated. I mean, that's true. I also think there's a migration of people leaving the state of California. Their numbers to choose from are going down.
Yeah. Well, you're going back to 2000. So, I mean, I think that, to me, I think the appealing part is the facilities. I think also playing during time slots. I think that, being in the Big 12 and the SEC, even in the Sun Belt, there's there's a handful of kids on the West Coast. And it's just a different opinion from my perspective on that. But I think college baseball has just gotten so big down here.
But it's pretty. Now, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like, but it is obvious. I mean, it's USC, the Cal State Fullertons. Where are they? I mean, this.
I don't have that answer. It'd be interesting to talk to a guy like Hook about that.
I have, and he kind of agrees with me. It's just been it's a different. You got. The volume of people are moving out. You're getting lesser to choose from,
Well, I don't know. No, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, I'm in a commercial.
Yeah, it's not severely. I was joking about play. It's not, but really, that's what's happening. People it's the opposite of the Dust Bowl years where people were moving out there. Now, all of a sudden, you have them moving out of there. A lot of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a commercial real estate business, and a lot of what we do is because there's a huge, there's a lot of people moving to the great state of Texas. Do you blame them? No. I mean, just because we got here first doesn't make us, I mean, we can't keep it a secret forever. And so everybody's, I mean, I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think the growth of college athletics in the South has got a lot to do with it.
No, I agree with that. The SEC
so made that combination.
In the 90s with Berkman going to LSU, the SEC as a whole made a decision to become a baseball conference. I don't disagree with that, but there's enough humans to go around. It's strange. And I'm not trying to be pointed with that, but it's very strange to not have, and this has been going on for years now, where just not a lot of juice coming out of the California schools.
Between Oregon State and Oregon, you added 2 more teams in there that weren't traditional baseball powers in 2000.
Yeah,
and now they are.
And Oregon State became one. In fairness, yeah,
that's right. So those kids that were going to USC aren't. Now remember, UCLA just played for national title not too long ago. So and won one not too long ago. So I mean, I think what you're saying is the Fullertons, aren't as as big as they were and as popular as they were. I think Arizona State's had a really down year, and so. What's the reason for that? I don't know that. I don't know that.
All right, Ty, we're going to leave you with one last question. Who is the key player for Texas in the postseason?
Ooh, good
David
question.
Lowery. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. I thought we were talking about back in. I thought we were
30
talking about.
something years too late. I mean, come on.
I had a momentary flashback. My apologies.
That's pretty funny.
The key player for the University of Texas is Tristan Stevens. He's the key player for me.
Really?
I think that
I will agree with that. If we go anywhere, Tristan has to be on his game. Yes.
Yep.
Gonna need him.
I agree. And
And I'll say one more, just like I said a while ago, and we're going to need one more pitcher from somewhere or a combo of two guys. There'll be some innings they'll have to come through for us. We'll see if they do or don't.
Just in the regional, though. They get past the regional, and they should be fine.
Well, think about what I'm saying is
you don't need that many arms.
Huh?
You don't need that many arms for the College World Series. You just don't need that many.
No, you don't, but you have to win a game 3. And just like you saw at the conference tournament, okay, that in their bracket, they won the first 2 and it was ugly game 3.
Yeah.
And then they did get some solid innings from folks, and that they're going to have to do some stuff like that or have 1 or 2 guys step up big.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. But you're right. You don't have to play that extra game.
Right.
So.
Think about this, and I'll leave you guys with this. Go back in the history of the University of Texas, and when they've won games, historically, there's always been Steve LeBay, Johnny Sutton, whoever it is, that all of a sudden emerges.
That's right.
In the halls of Disch-Falk Stadium.
Brian Dare.
Somebody emerges. Brian Dare, whoever that person is, and that's historically what has happened for the University of Texas. And you got to hope that maybe this weekend won't be any different.
That's right.
Always great to hear from you, Ty Harrington. Thanks so much for joining us here in the box seats.
Well, look, it's always great to hear from you and talk to you. I would say that about David, but David and I speak about 3 times a week, and I get to hear his opinion about life and baseball, and it's always qualified, and it's always a lot of fun.
He got terrified when I said something about politics. I said, no, I'm not being that hard about it. I'm just saying we're seeing an absence. But we'll have to get together before the Super Regionals, maybe after Super Regionals, do Omaha too. That'd be good.
Gentlemen, it's always great to see your face and hear your voices. I'll see you guys at Disch-Falk this weekend.
Thank you, Ty. Take care.